Welcome back, everybody. My name is Trini, and I am the Batquad. This is a channel where I go through my personal DVD collection from A through Z. Now, I am a quadriplegic, so keeping with the theme of four, every episode I choose four movies, I review them, I rate them, and at the end, I let them battle it out to see which one I like from least to most. Now, without further ado, we're moving on to Season B. All right, so we're kicking off Season B with Back to the Beach. Hold on, 5, 6, 7, that's 2, right? So it's 12. All right, I'm terrible at math. So Back to the Beach is this silly comedy from 1987. I was 12 years old when I saw it, but I don't remember going to the movies to see it, but it's definitely one of those movies that was on cable on constant rotation. The movie stars Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. Now, for those of you who don't know, and honestly, I didn't know this at the time, but these were two teen stars that were teen idols back in the 60s. And they played these characters where they were constantly on the beach and they were surfing, and there were like these little cutesy beach movies. They were called like Beach Blanket Bongo, something like that. Anyways, they played these characters as teens in these movies, and they were heartthrobs at the time. Well, flash forward 20 years later, they made this movie called Back to the Beach. And it was just a comedy, almost pretending like those movies were actual events and that these people are actors that played in those movies, and now they're actually going back to the beach. Now that they're older and married, they have their own kids. They have a daughter and they have a son, and she's a housewife, the perfect housewife, and he's a car salesman. He owns a car dealership. So at the start of the movie, I guess you can almost call him the main character, is their son named Bobby. Now, I remember watching this movie as a kid, and he was probably right around the same age as I was. But this kid is hilarious. In the 80s, they had a lot of kid brother characters. And I don't know, maybe because I was young and a boy in the 80s, I related to these guys. I just thought they were funny. And this kid, he delivers. He's so ridiculous. He's like he rebels against this perfect mom by he has this like switchblade, but it's not a switchblade. It's one of those switchblade combs, and he keeps kind of threatening people with it, but nobody takes him serious. And he gets like mad. He's like, "Oh man, nobody takes me serious." Anyway, kid's hilarious. So at the start of the movie, Annette, Frankie, and Bobby, they're going to go on a family vacation. And as it turns out, they're going to go out to where their oldest daughter is, Sandy, out by the beach. And when they get there, they kind of surprise her because she's supposed to be living on her own, going to college. But as it turns out, she's living at the beach with some surfer guy. Once they get back to the beach, they run into old people that they used to hang out with. And then now there's a like newer crowd. It's now the 80s, and there's punk bands and different kind of surfers, because now they have surfboards that are much smaller. And he used to ride this big, huge, giant long wood longboard. And he's totally like this old guy just trying to fit in with these hip new kids. And it's funny watching him just, hey, I was this big guy, and this was my beach back in the day, and nobody believes him. Annette and Frankie, they wind up having this some sort of disagreement, and they wind up kind of breaking up. So the rest of the movie follows their different stories where they're trying to get back together, and they're trying to use their old ways like they were in the 60s. So they would sing a song, or and it's in the people at the beach break out in song, and they start dancing around, and they start throwing parties like they would back in the days to try and get back together. I mean, it's just this silly 80s comedy that's super kid friendly. Several cameos by old actors like Wally and the Beaver, and their mom, and Gilligan and the skipper. There's a cameo by Pee Wee Herman, and Pee Wee Herman at the time was big. He'd just come out with his movie. I mean, it's just a really fun, silly, wholesome movie that pays homage to the, the to the 60s movies where everybody was at the beach and having a good old time. And this is just, it's just fun looking back at that. And even though I wasn't part of those movies, I don't remember those movies, they tell enough story about those movies that you get the idea. So you don't have to watch all those other movies. It's just fun on its own. Rewatching this movie for this review, I mean, it really took me back. It took me back to my childhood. I haven't seen this movie in who knows how long. And I just remember it was funny remembering certain scenes or certain things that they would say. And I mean, it just really took me back. There's a couple scenes that really stood out for me. There's the beach scene where they're doing this ska dance, and it's just really cute and charming. And anything with the son Bobby, that dude, he just cracks me up, man. That guy's just funny, and it's too bad that he didn't do other things. But I think for the time that for his age and for that character, I mean, he was perfect. And every scene he's in, I just crack up. So when it comes to rating this movie, I had a really good time. It really took me back. A lot of nostalgia's at play here, and I mean, I can't lie. I really liked it. I don't know that anybody else would, but for me, I did. And I'm going to give it a solid 3 out of 4 wheelchairs. The next movie for review is Backdraft. So Backdraft came out in 1991 and it was directed by Ron Howard. At the time, Ron Howard, he was a child actor growing up and he had started doing directing movies, and now he's a big movie director. But at the time, this is one of his first movies that was actually a hit. Backdraft stars, I mean, it's a star-studded movie. You have Kurt Russell in it, Donald Sutherland, Robert De Niro. There are several big major stars in this movie, and Kurt Russell is definitely one of my favorites. So the movie's about two brothers, really. You've got one brother played by Billy Baldwin, and the other brother played by Kurt Russell. And Billy, he's trying to be a fireman, and his brother Kurt, who's a little bit older, he's like this really successful, aggressive fireman. And the movie's basically about these two brothers and their differences. One is very confident, he's a great firefighter, and the other one, since he's kind of a rookie, he kind of washed out before and didn't go through with it, and now he's going through it a second time. And Kurt Russell just doesn't believe that Billy's up to the task, because initially when the movie starts, you see that their father had actually died during a fire. And Kurt Russell believes that if his brother is going to be a fireman and it's not really in his blood and his heart's not in it, that he's probably going to die too. And he just doesn't want that to happen. So aside from the family drama, there's also this other side story, which there's a serial killer out there and he's using fire to kill people. He's not quite an arsonist though, because what he does is he'll set a fire that'll cause an explosion, taking out his intended victim, but it doesn't actually cause a fire. So this movie, I mean, directed by Ron Howard, it's really awesome because it paints the firefighters. It almost makes them seem like superheroes with the music going and the way that the camera shows them going through their daily duties and saving people and putting out fires. I mean, it's really, really, I'm not a fireman and I never was, but this is one of those movies that makes you think, oh, I want to do this. I would love to be a fireman, because it paints them in such a positive light. And actually, at time of this recording in January 2025, I mean, the LA fires just happened. And man, those guys are real heroes out there. And this movie was just timely, because I would just watch this movie and then this happened. And man, they truly are heroes. So to get back to the movie, I really enjoyed it. This is one of those movies where, I mean, I've seen it more recently because I got it on 4K and it looks amazing in 4K. And so it's one of the movies that I've probably seen a little bit more often than, say, Back to the Beach. So I'm much more familiar with it. One of the things I think is the weakest part of this movie is really the Billy Baldwin, his character. I don't really like him all that much, which is hard to say, because all the other characters, they're great. And there are parts in it where he does well, but man, Kurt Russell just acts circles around this guy, and I just feel sorry for him, because I know he's from the Baldwin family, and some of those guys did some really good acting in a lot of movies. And Billy, I don't think he was really a breakout star. This was his chance, and I don't know, there was just something about him. He always seemed so mopey and so doubting of himself, and I guess that's part of the character, but it doesn't make him very likable. And it doesn't help that his love story with Jennifer Jason Leigh, um, I don't think they have a whole lot of chemistry together either. And I've seen her in other movies and she's done really well, but the chemistry of those two of them as a love story and also fighting with his brother. I just think, to me, the weakest link of the movie is Billy Baldwin. So if they had casted somebody different, if there was a different dynamic and chemistry between, the love story and then the story with the brother, I think this would have really elevated the movie. But it's one of the elements that really holds it back, and sadly, it's a major element. So Backdraft came out in 1991, like I said, and I remember seeing it in the movies. And this is one of those movies where I actually went by myself to see it. I think I was supposed to go with a couple friends, and we'd gone to the movie theater, and they wanted to see some romantic comedy or something. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm going to watch Backdraft. And I'm glad I did, because it stuck with me throughout the years. So for me, with most of the actors, the acting is great. The music's amazing. The special effects, I mean, it really feels like you're in a fire in some of these scenes. And there are a lot of great one-liners that come from it that really that I've remembered for my lifetime. I love the part where they're holding each other and they're hanging onto each other, and the one guy's like, let me go, and he's like, you go, we go. It's like we go as a team, and that has stuck with me through my life. I love that scene and that saying, and it really that kind of goes with anything in life. I mean, with your family members or with the wife or something. It's like, you if you go, we go, and we all go together. We're in this together. It's just pretty amazing. I like that. So with all that, when it comes to rating this movie, I really enjoyed it. It looks amazing in 4K. I highly recommend it. And giving it a score, I mean, the Billy Baldwin character, I know it's supposed to be that way, but rewatching this again, he just really bugged me a little bit more. Otherwise, I would give this a 4-star rating, but I think I'm gonna have to give it probably a 3.5 wheelchairs out of 4. All right, so the next movie is gonna be Bachelor Party. So this movie came out in 1984. I didn't go to see it in the movies, but I definitely caught it on cable, especially late night. And I probably saw it when I was way too young. I was 9 years old when it came out. So Bachelor Parties is raunchy sex comedy starring Tom Hanks and his soon to be wife in the movie. The reason why they're having a bachelor party, played by Tawny Katane. Now everybody knows who Tom Hanks is, but I don't think everybody knows who Tawny Katane is. Tawny Katane, for me, she was one of those hot, sexy, redheaded '80s girls that that I was totally into at the time. She had played in another movie called Witchboard, and she was also in these White Snake videos. She's dancing around on top of these cars. I mean, it's pretty amazing videos. They were on high rotation on MTV, and when I saw her in this movie, I fell head over heels. So this movie, it follows Tom Hanks as Rick as he announces to his friends that he's going to get married, and his buddies are like, "Oh hell no, it's not going to happen without us throwing you a bachelor party." So that's what they do. They throw him this bachelor party. And as it turns out, it's just this wild bachelor party that happens. It's all kinds of craziness goes on. There's drugs, there's hookers, there's a live band walks in, and they trash the hotel, and there's a donkey that dies from overdose. I mean, there is just craziness. Tom Hanks is such a juvenile in this movie. I mean, he just plays this guy who he's in love with this girl, but man, he wants to grow up, but his ridiculous friends keep dragging him back in, and it's just funny watching these guys just going all out for this for Tom Hanks's bachelor party. It's really funny. This is just one of those raunchy sex '80s comedies that I love. I love to watch. I love to see every so often, and this one in particular has stuck with me. And I watch it like at least once every 5 years or so. So on this last review, when I watched it this last time, I noticed a couple of things that made the movie slow down a little bit for me. There's one character, I think his name is Brad, and he comes in about midway through, and he's like this, I don't know, depressing guy who's going through a divorce or something. And every time he comes into the movie just, for me, it just stops, because it's just there's all this hilarity going on, and then he pops in, and he has this weird way of talking. There's always whining, and it's just I wish if somebody can do a bachelor party edit and take him out of the movie completely, I think the movie would be perfect comedy. I have so many favorite scenes in this movie that are just so funny and charming and just made me laugh. It's hard to figure out what would be a best scene. Uh, so Bachelor Party, I think it's one of these great comedies that I know that anytime I put it on, it's just going to put a smile on my face. And Tom Hanks was great in it. His ridiculous friends are all funny, and Tawny Katane looking sexy. I mean, I can't give this movie any less than 3 out of 4 wheelchairs. And for my final movie today, it's going to be Beastmaster. So Beastmaster came out in 1982. I was about 7 years old when it came out, and I don't think I saw this one in the movies, but this one also was in heavy rotation on cable, and it would come on almost daily, and I used to watch it all the time. Movie stars Mark Singer as the Beastmaster Dar, and his love interest in this movie is Tanya Roberts. Now I mentioned in the last review how much I love Tawny Katane, this sexy redhead. Well, Tanya Roberts, she's another little sexy redhead that my little brain just couldn't comprehend. I just thought she was so hot, and her big blue eyes, and anyway. So the Beastmaster is about this guy who can talk to beasts and can kind of control them, and he can use their powers, like he can see what they see, and it helps him out with his quest to get revenge on his village that was destroyed by this evil, like, emperor type guy. So the movie follows Dar on his quest, and during this quest, he gets a couple friends. One of them being John Amos. He helps him out, and he runs into the Tawny Katane character, and they make this plan to overthrow this emperor to return this kingdom back to its former glory. This movie came out at a time when Conan the Barbarian was really popular, and there were several what they called swords and sandals type movies that were out there, sword and sorcery type movies. And I at the time I just ate them all up. But Beastmaster to me was one of the ones that I remember the most because I think it was a little bit more kid friendly, where Conan was very serious, and this movie had animals, including a large tiger, a hawk, some little, I think they were weasels. No, not weasels. What, ferrets, and a pair of ferrets. I mean, there was a little bit of a kid whimsy to it, but there was also, the sword part, the sword fighting and the killing. I mean, it was real. There were some really scary parts, but it was a little bit easier, I guess, for my little brain to handle at the time. I thought Mark Singer was a great hero. I mean, he looked great. He looked almost like a living He-Man before Dolph Lundgren did it later. But this guy was very much a prototype of that. He had the body and the movements, and I mean, he did great. He was physically great, and his acting was really good too. I hadn't seen this movie in a while, so on this review, watching it again, I mean, again, just like the other movies I was talking about, it just brought me back to my childhood. There were so many things that I remembered about the movie that rewatching it, I just like, oh, I remembered lines. I remembered the scene that was coming up. There's so many characters in it that are just unique to this movie that I just enjoyed watching it all over again. This is a movie that I also recently got on 4K, and I mean, it's a much older movie and it was very low budget at the time, so the 4K, it makes it look so much better than the DVD. I mean, it's looked the best that I've ever seen it, and I was very happy with it. So when it comes to rating this movie, there's a real nostalgia factor in it. But honestly, I mean, the acting is great. The scary things are scary. The heroic things are heroic. I mean, the girls look great in it. Of course, Tanya Roberts. And so, I mean, if I'm going to give it a rating, I, I'm going to give it a solid 3 out of 4 wheelchairs. No. So here's a part of the video where I have these movies battle it out to figure out which one I like from least to best. This is a problem here because honestly, these are all childhood movies of mine. Um, there are really no losers in this one because I had a great time watching all of them. This has probably been one of the more fun reviews that I've had to do. So, I mean, if I have to go strictly off of quality and production value and everything else, I really hate doing this, but I think Back to the Beach. Ugh. is probably in my number 4 position, and I really hate putting it there, but I don't know that it hurts my heart putting it at number 4. But I mean, there it is. There are just 3 other movies that I just enjoyed just a little bit more. So for my number 3 position, oh man, ooh, I hate to say it, but I think oh, this is painful. All right, I think I'm gonna put Backdraft in my number 3 position, and I know it's probably sacrilegious, considering the movies that I have here, but I really, after this review, I really couldn't stand the Billy Baldwin character. He really brought the movie down for me, and when it's up against these other movies that I just really love, especially as a kid, I mean, I'm sorry, I got to put it in the number 3 position, even though I gave it a higher score, which leaves Bachelor Party and Beastmaster. I mean, on this review, uh, they, hmm, I mean, I'm really nitpicking here when it comes to which one I like more. And honestly, if it comes right down to it, Bachelor Party makes me laugh, and Beastmaster is just exciting adventure. And when it comes down to it, I'm more of a horror, sci-fi, adventure kind of guy, more than a comedy guy. And really, there isn't really any bad characters in Beastmaster, but Bachelor Party kind of sagged a little bit for me this last time I watched it, and really that Brad character, anytime, like I said, anytime he comes on, it just stops the movie for me. But everything else is hilarious. Most of the jokes hit, but when it comes down to it, I think I have to put Bachelor Party in number 2 and Beastmaster as my number 1. I just, you know, I love it. It's just one of those. It has horror elements. It has comedic elements. Uh, Young kids could watch it if they wanted to, because it has that little bit gateway into fantasy and sorcery type movies. And I mean, hey, I love Beastmaster. What can I say? That's my number 1 pick out of these 4 movies. So that's the end of this episode. This is my first episode into season B. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really hard for me to pick which ones I'd like from least to best. But hey, you know what? That's the job I've given myself. So maybe you agree, maybe you don't. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. So as I've said before, all these movies, I'm giving them away. You just send me a message and I'll send them to you for free. All you have to do is like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and let me know which movie you want. So remember, my name is Trini. I am the Batquad, and I am End of Watch.